the best Leonard Williams memory I will have is the trade to the Giants. Because A, it was a heist and a half, and B, the Giants took that deal, and I can make fun of my Giants fan friends. Welcome to episode 9 of the Go for Two podcast, a podcast for frustrated football fans by two frustrated football fans. I'm Brad Klein, and my co-host is Jenna Elique. Now, Jenna, this is our 9th episode, but in many ways, it's our first. Because, look, if you're listening on YouTube, sure, we're syndicated there too. But stop! We're on Apple Podcasts, along with the Big Time Podcast. Get in with modern times on our wavelength.
Finally, about time. I want to say a quick thank you to our loyal listeners who have gone through the whole journey, the whole evolution of us and our different streaming platforms. We were on SoundCloud. You can still find us on SoundCloud, some of our previous episodes. Then we made the transition over to YouTube. Not ideal for a, non-visual platform, but you could still tune in if that's what you like.
I'm pretty sure John Adams had a podcast on YouTube. Could be wrong.
It's definitely not ideal, but we still encourage you to subscribe because there will be the fan frustration replays will still go up on YouTube if you want to remember what we were frustrated about. Again, our archives can be found both on SoundCloud and YouTube, so we encourage you to still engage with our content there. But our home base is Apple Podcasts, and we're excited about it. We're pumped. I hope you guys, it's a better, ideal situation for you guys in terms of listening.
Yeah, getting on Apple Podcasts was actually harder than I thought. It's really not that hard, but there were a few obstacles that I quite honestly didn't foresee. So that's why we had the delay. We're on Apple Podcasts now, so that means we're big time now. We're kind of a big deal, but just saying.
Yeah, just don't ask us why we're not on Spotify.
Yeah. Oh God, what a nightmare, Spotify. And they're not a sponsor either, so we're not Spotifyers here. But look, whether we are or we're not, we're on Apple Podcast. And on this first edition of an Apple Podcast, well, we have a good show for you, okay? We're going to talk a little bit of the Black Lives Matter response that the NFL gave in light of George Floyd. We'll talk about some holdout action with Dalvin Cook, but we begin with the Drew Brees saga and the starting quarterback for the Saints, future Hall of Famer. He at least was, Jenna, beloved in New Orleans. And then he voiced his opinion. He said, quote, "I will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag of the United States of America." He said that a few days ago during an interview with Yahoo Finance, and that did not settle well with pretty much America. And he's apologized twice. Some teammates have accepted his apology. Other players have not, like Eagles defensive tackle Malik Jackson. He thinks it was just a PR stunt. Jenna, what do you think not only about what Brees said, but just about the entire fallout?
I don't know what people want him to do. He obviously made a mistake when he said his original statements. I think anyone no one would disagree with that. He probably forgot that he was, NFL quarterback Drew Brees. Everyone's going to be intent in listening to what you have to say on a subject that greatly impacts your teammates and the majority of the NFL. So right off the bat, when I saw that this happened, I was like, why would he do this? It just doesn't make sense. Even if that is what he believes in it, like in his heart, in his brain, that's what he thinks. I don't think it's wise that he said anything about that. But it comes to a point where he admitted his wrongdoing over social media with, your probably more generic social media posts. But when I read it, I could tell he was genuinely sorry. Not everyone agreed with me. Then he had to make a video and show people that he was visibly upset. I don't know about you, but a PR stunt, I think you'd only get the statement. You wouldn't get multiple things. And then after that, he penned a social media message to the president to explain what he's learned after having a discussion with his teammates. So I think initially he was wrong, but you got to give the guy a break. He's trying to do the best he can to, understand. And I feel like everyone is telling everyone how they should be feeling and how they should be responding at this time. And it's kind of frustrating for some people. Again, I'm not saying that what he initially said was correct or right, but how much more can he do to try to make up for it? I know a few of his teammates, like Michael Thomas in particular, had already forgiven him, had a conversation, and I think that's the most important thing during these times when we all have differing opinions. Conversation is the most important part, and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of conversation going around in the world right now. It's everyone yelling at each other, so nothing's going to get solved until we have a good conversation, which Drew Brees and his teammates can be a great example for that.
Exactly. And you hit on it. You hit the nail on the head right there. This is exactly what we need in this country because there is a lot of disconnect right now between people that are protesting, people that are not, people that understand the protests, and people that don't. And Drew Brees didn't get it. I think now he does. And the reason he does is because of the conversations he's had with his teammates. This is America. Disagreement, question, conversation, resolution. Michael Thomas and Drew Brees, they don't agree with one another, but they understand each other. They see where the other one is coming from, and now they can play football in a civil way. They can work together, understanding that they don't agree, and that's okay. That's fine. I'm a little disappointed, though, in the country because what Drew Brees said was not racist. At the very worst, it was ignorant,
Mm-hmm.
and that shouldn't be a crime in this country. And it's almost heartbreaking to me because of all that Drew Brees has done for the city of New Orleans, for the state of Louisiana, for him to get booed during those protests. That doesn't settle right with me just because of how important he is. He's a staple in the community. He helped so much during Katrina, and we forget about that because he disagrees with us. That's not right. That's not right. He didn't I don't think he meant any harm. He just didn't understand, and now he does. So maybe this was a blessing in disguise for Drew Brees, and maybe it was for the country as a whole. But moving on, look, Drew Brees is not the first, not the last case of disagreement, of friction in this country in light of George Floyd. Black players in the NFL, they released a Black Lives Matter video, and the league responded to it. Listen to what Roger Goodell said, condemning racism in the league.
We, the National Football League, admit we were wrong for not listening to NFL players earlier and encourage all to speak out and peacefully protest. We, the National Football League, believe Black Lives Matter.
That was Roger Goodell's response to the players' video, condemning racism, yes. But Jenna, it's a very similar question to Drew Brees. Is this a PR stunt, and does this actually represent the league turning a corner in their stance on systematic and institutional racism?
Well, I think it's important for us to go back and see the origin of this video that was created. It was done by an NFL employee who, without permission, talked to some players and said, "Hey, I want to make a difference. Something's not sitting right with me." And he got some of the league's best, which, like you said, is very important because if they want to put the NFL on notice, if they want to, show that they're serious, you got to have the superstars. You got to have, it's kind of like leverage. It kind of gives you leverage of why should the NFL respond? Well, you're going to have all these star players, not backing you if you do. I saw something on Instagram from, one of the many sport accounts, and it said that the NFL was worried when they saw Patrick Mahomes in that video because he is the face of the league at this point. He's one of the best players in the NFL, and that's why they chose to have all these players. You had Saquon Barkley, had all these superstars, and the league, quickly responded, and rightfully so. I'm not going to say it was the perfect response, and it wasn't, the cookie cutter answer, but it was a good idea. The league's video.
Yeah, it definitely mattered who was in the video, not just what color of the skin of the representatives in the video. Patrick Mahomes carries a different weight. Saquon Barkley the same way, and Jamal Adams too. I think the NFL's response was fine, very similar to the other response that we were talking about. I believe last week, the players weren't happy. Kenny Stills, Eric Reed, they weren't happy with Roger Goodell's response to all this, and that's from last week, I believe. And I said, look, he didn't say anything wrong. The problem is it came from Roger Goodell. No one likes Roger Goodell. especially the players. I think you mentioned it, leverage. Right now, the players actually have more leverage than they were expecting and more leverage than I was expecting. I haven't seen this much in a long time. The players the players right now, given the magnitude of what's going on, they're able to force the hand of the league. The league sees how clearly they were wrong with Colin Kaepernick in 2016. And the players, especially when you have the Pro Bowl players behind them, behind the movement, that changes things. If Patrick Mahomes takes a knee, it's a lot different than Colin Kaepernick taking a knee. I just fear that the movement dies out and loses a little bit of its flame by the time the season rolls around, because we're still far away from there. So I
Mhm.
will see. We'll see. But the players that were in the video, that certainly matters. We'll see when the players get back to their locker rooms, though. When they do, the rules are going to be a little different. There are social distancing rules going back to the coronavirus, the original problem of 2020. Now we have an entirely different pandemic that we're talking about, but the coronavirus, 6 feet, that's still in play for NFL teams even when they come back. 6 feet between players in locker rooms, masks in facilities, virtual meetings whenever possible. Equipment will be disinfected after every game. Now, Jenna, we could talk about how this is a PR stunt. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. The NFL is trying to cover their tracks. But I'm done talking about public relations. We've talked about that over the first two topics already. The question is, are the players safe even with these social distancing rules? They're in locker rooms. Sure, they might not be sharing cold tubs anymore, but is this really enough?
I'm not gonna say it's enough, but I'm definitely not gonna say that it's like wrong or bad or it's in ill will. I just don't think that there's anything that can be done. It's a contact sport. It's one of, the major contact sports because you're honestly always touching each other all the time. So it's the 6 feet between players in locker rooms. I guess that will stop the spread when you're in the locker room. But last time I checked, most of the stuff that goes down is on the field, so that's not going to do much. Masks in the facilities also not going to do much because I feel like everything that is being done and put in place can just be undone by, okay, right when you tackle somebody. So it doesn't make much sense. The virtual meetings as much as possible, also good, less opportunities to mix in with larger groups. But in sports, that's why sports are kind of, easing their way back in because you're with people all the time and there's nothing you can do without that. There's not much you can do in terms of your sport. So I don't know if it does much. I think it's important to talk about just because we are getting closer and closer, and that's what's newsworthy in the NFL is just talking about how we're taking each step each day to get closer to the start of the season, and facilities are going to start opening up, and these are the rules the NFL would like the players to follow.
Yeah, I don't know. Right now, if the season began tomorrow, it wouldn't be enough because look at what the NBA is doing. The NBA is bubbling itself in the worldwide leader of sports campus at Disney World in Orlando. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think a bubble is possible for football, just given what you need. The facilities, 100 yards is a lot bigger than 90 feet for a basketball court.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's possible. I think the NFL is holding out, hoping that time helps them and that this will be enough. Because if it's not enough, then I don't think they can have a season. I mean, there's not much else that they can do. You're right. Touching, tackling, it's inherent in football. You cannot avoid it. Just like in basketball, but in basketball, you're bubbling the players in so you know that a player that does not have it is touching another player that does not have it. So it's okay. But in
Mm-hmm.
football, if you're not bubbling those players in, if all holds the same, and hopefully it doesn't, I don't see how this is nearly enough. But hey, the teams are proud of their precautions. I saw that the Giants released on Twitter a tour of their coronavirus safe facility. The arrows painted on the floors, the hand sanitizer everywhere, the masks at your disposal. They're proud of it, and good for them. Good for them. Hopefully the locker rooms, the facilities are a safe place when the players return. But who knows when all the players are going to return for different reasons. Some players might feel safe, others might not. Dalvin Cook, we don't know how he feels, but right now he does not plan on returning anytime soon. He's holding out. And there's nothing that we like more on the Go For Two podcast than star running backs holding out. Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, you're not imagining it. It is deja vu. Dalvin Cook is the next running back to hold out. He's looking to make Christian McCaffrey money, $16 million a year, and the Vikings already offered less than 10. He rejected it. But Jenna, is Dalvin Cook really worth this money?
Well, let's go back. Let's take a little rewind back to episode 1 where I said Christian McCaffrey, he was worth all that money, and literally nobody else in the sports media world agreed with me. I even heard, no one's disagreeing that is way too much money. And I was like, except for me. So I'm going to proceed with caution here. But I think that's a little steep. I don't think that Dalvin Cook is going to get Christian McCaffrey money because, frankly, he's not Christian McCaffrey. Just looking at the stats, a side-by-side comparison, Christian McCaffrey is better in almost every statistical category. And it really separates in the part that I think makes Christian McCaffrey, which is the receiving game. It's no comparison. You're going to pay Dalvin Cook, who's a lesser player, the same amount of money. It just doesn't make sense. And he better be careful that he doesn't, end up lessening his value over time. And he's also been pretty injury prone. So we'll see. I don't think he'll get the money that he wants, though.
Well, injury prone is the name of the game, right? Running backs, they're durable for a short span of time, and they're reliable for a short span of time. Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook, they've been in the league the exact same amount of time, 3 years. Christian McCaffrey has never missed a game. He's played all 16. He started 10 his rookie year and then all 16 his sophomore and, if you will, junior seasons. Dalvin Cook, not so much. Not so much for Dalvin Cook. In his first year, he only played 4 games. Second, 11, and the third, 14. The third year is where all of this is coming from because he had a great season. 13 touchdowns, over 1,100 rushing yards, and only 14 games. To rush for over 1,100 yards in only 14 games, that's special. And you can ask my friends back in Jersey. I was a huge Dalvin Cook fan. Huge. When he was coming out of Florida State, I saw him tear Syracuse up in the dome, shred him like there's no tomorrow. He was fantastic. And when he got hurt his rookie year, I thought that might derail his career. And he bounced back in a big way. He deserves a payday, but not McCaffrey money. Because McCaffrey,
Agreed.
You can point to the receiving yards, the rushing yards, everything. Christian McCaffrey is just better, like you just said, but it's also just the number of games. You cannot even begin to compare.
Well, something that we will be comparing when we start this upcoming season is how the NFL looks after the George Floyd murder and just the impact of all those things. We talked about it. We heard the commissioner talk about how that they were wrong with the whole Colin Kaepernick and everyone who protested with him. So, Brad, my question to you is, how is the NFL going to look going forward after, the strides that are being made in social justice?
History builds on itself. So, in theory, every second changes the next. And George Floyd should impact the NFL going forward. I'm afraid, though, that it will get washed away and almost forgot about, like all the other cases that came before George Floyd. I think we will see a few more players kneel, and it will only have a huge impact if certain players kneel. If the high market players that carry that weight, that sell the jerseys and the tickets that the NFL cannot afford to blackmail, if they kneel, then maybe. But I don't see any institutional systematic change, which is what this protest is all about. It's systematic institutional racism. So I don't see it impacting the Rooney Rule, for example. I can't see that happening. The NFL was talking about this before George Floyd was murdered. I don't think it's going to affect that. I think there is a sense of racism, subconsciously or not, in the NFL today. And I don't think that George Floyd is going to touch that.
I agree with you. I don't know how far it will span into the season and how effective it will be. The NFL for the past couple of years has tried to, do different things to make the NFL, I don't know, more cool with diversity. I don't know what the correct terms are, but they've done things to make sure that more people are represented. And I remember they signed a contract with, is it Rock Nation? Is that Jay-Z's thing?
Yes.
Just to make the entertainment at the Super Bowl more, inclusive and more evident of what, the audience is probably going to want to hear. And that's just like one of the things that, not a lot of people were happy with on both sides, that, the NFL, tried or, claimed to try to fix things. But I agree with you. It's not going to do much. There's not going to be things. I don't think they're going to go about things any differently than they have in the past. I think we will see a lot more players kneeling, because now it's something that would probably not cause them to lose their jobs like it has in the past. So I don't know how far that will extend, but I know at least on game day, that's what we'll probably see.
But yeah, maybe. But there's something to keep in mind. I nailed this home, tried to. You're not going to see institutional change. It's on the players. As I said a few minutes ago, the players have more leverage than ever before. It's on the players. If they kneel, then maybe. If they don't, no chance.
Yeah.
No chance.
Well, we're going to move on to the what was trending for this week. Brad's has a very similar theme to what we were just talking about. So go ahead, Brad, tell us what your what was trending was.
Former teammates DeAndre Hopkins, Deshaun Watson, they're petitioning Clemson University to remove the name of John C. Calhoun from their school's honor college. Now, again, I know that Confederate statues, they're being pulled down all across the South, and some say it's part of South Carolina's history, and it is, but not in a good way. You have to be able to learn from history. You shouldn't need a statue to help you remember your roots. And John C. Calhoun, I understand that you can't talk about South Carolina's history without him, but I think you can celebrate the state without him and celebrate the school without him. And good for DeAndre Hopkins and Deshaun Watson to actually look back at their roots to Clemson University, remember where they played in college, and actually care and put thought into the environment that players after them are entering.
That's a great way for them to use their influence to make change instead of doing things that may not seem the most practical. They're going and they're doing something with their name and their influence, and trying to make a change that will be visible to the generations to come. They're leaving a legacy at Clemson University and in history. So I think that is a great way to do that.
Yeah, and I feel like oftentimes players forget about their schools. They go to their schools, they shine there, they go to the NFL, and all of a sudden they're bigger than a school. I can't see Aaron Rodgers putting this much thought or consideration into Cal. But good for Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins to say, hey, this is a problem back where we are from, essentially, in our football careers, and we're going to try to fix it using our platform and our power.
Yeah, that's the one thing about college football that I know a lot of people love, is just like the loyalty to your school and just loving that you play for that school. And that it fades a lot when you go into the NFL, but it's something that's very reminiscent and is pretty cool. I'm gonna, lighten the mood a little bit, talk about something that has been going on. I feel like since we've been in quarantine, for the 100 years we've been here. And it's these weird, I wouldn't call them challenges, because not challenge, but social media, social media professionals right now are trying to find content. And the way they do it is by, either comparing two players, who would you prefer, or doing the, you have $15 and here are the price ranges for all these players. But the most recent one, the one that, came up this weekend and was trending on Twitter, was a mock draft done by ESPN that said the rules were very simple. It was you can take anybody. So they were in the order of this year's draft minus trades, I believe, or just, if you had more than one pick, it just stuck with your first pick, and I guess shuffled everyone else in. And it said anyone's available to you that is currently active in the NFL. And you're thinking, okay, all these teams are going to get, the best of the best, top tier players. And then you see, Drew Lock going number 15 to Denver. Some people thought that was a little bit early. Especially, not even a little bit early. I'd say probably shouldn't have been included in this draft. But yeah. It's people had your same reaction, Brad. That just didn't make much sense, and the thought behind it, I would love to hear it.
Well, I don't know. I can think of 15 players I'd rather start a franchise with. That's the thing. It's a draft, and you want to start your franchise with this player. So it can't be Tom Brady. I think I'd rather have Drew Lock than Tom Brady because you need youth and a future. But, first it's going to be Patrick Mahomes and then Lamar Jackson. Aaron Rodgers, even though he's not 24, should be going ahead of Drew Lock because he's not ancient. I could see Kyler Murray going ahead of Drew Lock. Drew Lock hasn't proven anything. He hasn't done anything. He was pretty good at Missouri as a second-round quarterback, and beyond that, there's been hype. And that's it. Nothing else.
Well, we do see ahead of Drew Lock. We do see the Tom Brady's, the Aaron Rodgers.
Tom Brady was ahead of Drew Lock?
Yeah, at 14, he went to Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
that's rough. Why? You can't justify that. Guy's 42. That's ridiculous.
But the players behind, not even talking the quarterback position, we have George Kittle. We have DeAndre Hopkins, who we just spoke about. We have another weird one. Minnesota took Ryan Tannehill at number 25.
A reunion. No, that's Miami. Never mind. What am I talking about? Minnesota. Oh my gosh. Do me a favor, just for my peace of mind. Can you read 1 through 14? Do you mind?
Yeah.
Sure.
I know. I have no problem. So
the big board, if you will.
Yes. So Cincinnati took Patrick Mahomes at number 1. Washington took Russell Wilson at number 2. Detroit took Lamar Jackson at number 3. The Giants took Deshaun Watson at number 4. Miami took Aaron Donald at number 5. The Chargers took Ronnie Stanley at number 6. Joey Bosa was taken at number 7 by Carolina. Arizona took Drew Brees at number 8. Jacksonville took Dak at number 9. Cleveland took Nick Bosa at number 10. Your Jets took Carson Wentz at number 11. My Raiders took Aaron Rodgers at number 12. Indianapolis took Joe Burrow at 13. Tampa took Tom Brady at 14. There's their big board, and then Drew Lock is at number 15 for Denver.
So it's not just Drew Lock that I have a problem with. I don't think Ronnie Stanley should have gone. He was top 10, right?
Yeah, he's number 6 for the LA Chargers.
Come on, who's going to sell the jerseys? I get it. He's a good tackle. You need a good tackle, but come on, Ronnie Stanley. And how did Tom Brady go before Aaron Rodgers? Or no, he didn't. Drew Brees did. Drew Brees went before Aaron Rodgers. What are we talking about here? Come on. And Ronnie Stanley, love him to death. 4 years, 1 Pro Bowl, 1 All-Pro. Just calm down with Ronnie Stanley. Forget it. This list doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to me. I'm frustrated enough, and we haven't even hit the fan frustration segment. That's ridiculous.
Well, we already got you frustrated, so why not we just lean right into it? Go ahead, Brad. Start. We got you revved up. Let's continue.
Oh, hold on. Well, we can't have the fan frustration segment without
fan frustration.
I just wanted to play that. That's just fun. But here we go. It's fan frustration. And Jenna, I start with my Jets, and Sam Darnold is getting compared. Guy's getting compared a lot. And you know what? Given this comparison, I'm kind of surprised that he wasn't in the top 14 of that big board. Who would you like to start your franchise with? Because Sam Darnold is drawing Aaron Rodgers comparisons from Chris Sims. And to Chris Sims, I say this. Please stop. What are you doing? I mean, come on. This is not helping anyone. This is not helping Sam Darnold. This is not helping me. And as a Jets fan, I'm supposed to get excited. Chris Sims knows his stuff. I get that. And my player is being compared to Aaron Rodgers. That's awesome. But the last time a young Jet was compared to a player was Leonard Williams. Wasn't that long ago. Leonard Williams was compared to Richard Seymour, Calais Campbell, Gerald McCoy, all fantastic players. Leonard Williams was a can't-miss prospect. He was the most talented player in the draft, had a great combine, and only fell to 6 because he wasn't a quarterback. And he was terrible. Horrible. And the best Leonard Williams memory I will have is the trade to the Giants. Because A, it was a heist and a half, and B, the Giants took that deal, and I can make fun of my Giants fan friends. This is not helping. I can see the comparison in the way they play, both with big arms, both risk takers, and that's why he was drawing a lot of Brett Favre comparisons, especially in his rookie year. But as a Jets fan now, I'm not excited. I'm just worried that this sets the fan base and the franchise up for massive disappointment.
I think we were on, the same wavelength when we were talking, or, we didn't plan this, but my fan frustration is very similar.
If he's Aaron Rodgers, put him in the top 5 of the list. What are you doing? He's Aaron Rodgers, Chris Sims. Chris Sims says, then he has to be good. He has to be the top 5. He's a young Aaron Rodgers. What's he doing? I have a question. Can we go back for a second? Where was Sam Darnold on that list? Was he there?
Was Sam Darnold on the list? Was that your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, New England.
New England takes him.
23.
Congratulations. You get Aaron Rodgers at 23. Congratulations. Yasha Koach, as my people would say, because apparently Chris Sims says he's Aaron Rodgers. So that's a steal, apparently.
So back to what I was saying, we have a very similar theme when it comes to our fan frustration for this week. It's, something that's not necessarily bad happening, and there's a lot of potential there, but there's some, we've been hurt before. And my fan frustration is wrapped around Max Crosby. And you could think, Jenna, how could you be frustrated about Max Crosby? He was a 4th-round pick last year, and he had 10 sacks. He tied with Nick Bosa for the most sacks by a rookie. That is, way more than you could have ever expected from this guy's rookie year. And to that I said, you're correct. It has nothing to do with Max Crosby's play. It's this article I found that said that Max Crosby is the building block for the Raiders organization. And that language, just him in general, reminds me of someone else that we used to call the building block of our new foundation, but he was later traded. And not in a good trade where I'm happy, in a bad trade when I'm frustrated. It reminds me of, I've spoken about before, the Khalil Mack trade. And, you say that these guys are the people, the faces of your franchise, the building block. You trade them away, and then you complain about not having a pass rush. So my fear is that a similar thing is going to happen to Max Crosby. He's going to realize that he should get paid whenever that time may come, because he's just, he just finished his rookie season. And he's going to ask them for some money, and rightfully so. If he, stays on this trend and even goes upward, he's going to be one of the best defensive ends in all of the NFL, which I'm super excited about. But he's going to ask for his money, and when it gets hard, you're just going to say, okay, we'll just trade you, and we'll get a whole bunch of draft picks and start all over again. I don't want that to happen again. I've been hurt before. I'm kind of easing into this now. Easing into my Max Crosby fanhood, because last time this happened, I was destroyed, to the bone. I couldn't. It was hard. It was hard to be a Raiders fan after what happened with Khalil Mack. I was irreparable. It was bad. So I'm kind of on that rebound defensive end, and I hope he sticks around.
And this is rough for anyone listening at home. I'm just going to translate what Jenna is saying. You trade away a really good player for picks. Best case scenario is that pick turns into the really good player that you already had. And it's
Mhm.
it's more complex than that. I get it. Timing, and you're not really ready to have a good player yet. I get it. But I just feel for you. Oh my God. Khalil Mack can be your fan frustration every week, and I wouldn't even say anything about it. And it can relate to each one unintentionally. It just goes back to the epitome of being a Raiders fan.
That is exactly what I was going to say. It's not just my fan frustration when we record this podcast on Tuesdays. It is my fan frustration from Monday or Sunday, wherever you decide to start your week, all the way through. All 7 days, all 24 hours of each of those 7 days, I will forever be upset that Khalil Mack is a Chicago Bear. And I don't know if I said this last time. I think I did probably. But there, my heart, my whole football fan heart. You can't see it. I'm like posing like the people can see it. Well, I had, my hands are shaped in a heart, and there's a little piece of it that belongs to the Chicago Bears. A little piece after that, because I love Khalil Mack as a player, and I thought that the Raiders were wrong in that situation. So now I am part Chicago Bears fan. No matter, if the Raiders end up doing Derek Carr dirty, I might have my heart somewhere else as well.
Well, that's all we have for you on this edition of the Go For 2 podcast. Give us a follow on Twitter at Go4 podcast. Again, we're on Apple Podcasts. It's a revolutionary time to be a host on this podcast. Take a look at Apple Podcasts, Go For 2 podcast. Easy to find. We have a cool logo too. I made it. Pretty proud of it. Just saying. Send us an email too. Go4 2pod@gmail.com. We're still on YouTube, but that's a thing of the past. It's really up there for Grandpa. Grandpa can take a look. He doesn't have Apple Podcasts, doesn't know how to work it. Still trying to figure out that television thing. I'm trying to help him with that. But hey, he knows how to use YouTube. We're going to keep it up there for him. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.